So yesterday I saw this ad for a new plugin by Waves, which apparently solves the biggest problem that we music makers have faced since the invention of tonality, basically, which is what's the key of the song that I'm working on? Is it G flat minor? Is it C sharp major? Something in between? We don't know, right? Well, Waves to the rescue. They have harnessed the power of AI and their state of the art Waves neural network to finally figure out what the key of a song is. I saw that ad and I was feeling some feels, like some bad things. Rage, I might call it. I was about to jump into the comment section and write this whole treatise about the importance of craftsmanship in music and blah, 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 when I see that many have already come before me. So I decide to read some of those comments first. And I see this one thing come back time and time again, said by multiple people, which boils down to something like, if you need this plugin to figure out the key of the song that you're working on, maybe you should just give up on music altogether. And I read that, and that sort of stopped me right in my tracks because I noticed how much that comment is actually what I wanted to shout from the rooftops, right? But reading it out loud like that, seeing it in front of me, also makes me realize that it feels pretty damn wrong to say something like that. So, yeah, I guess we have some emotional archaeology to do today. The quest for groove. In 1996, when I was 10 years old, my parents bought a state-of-the-art PC. It was a Pentium 1 166 megahertz processor with a 1 gigabyte hard disk drive, a CD-ROM player, and a Sound Blaster 64 sound card, because at that time, if you didn't have a sound card in your computer, it could only produce these bleeps and blops. My mother, who used to be a bass player in an all-female new wave band in the 80s, she wouldn't stand for that, right? That kind of sound quality was below her level, so she told the computer guy to put in the best sound card that they had available, which was the Sound Blaster 64, and she also threw in a little MIDI keyboard, just in case any of us in the family wanted to make some music on the computer. Well, turned out I was the only one in the family making music with the computer and that keyboard. And the reason for that was basically that I wasn't allowed to play Warcraft 2 all day. But if I did something educational, right, or creative, I was basically allowed unlimited screen time. So that's how I found myself with that keyboard behind the computer and installing this program that I think was an early version of Cubase because it looked kind of like this, but I'm not sure. Anyways, I had a program like this and that keyboard, and I figured out that I could either press a button on the keyboard or select some sort of an option in that software that would allow me to play chords with just one finger by pressing one key on the keyboard. And it would just produce these diatonical in-key chords, whatever key I would press. And I couldn't play any piano, so figuring that out was a sort of an eye-opener to me. I made quite a lot of songs just with the keyboard and that option enabled. And I don't have the songs anymore. They probably weren't any good, but I vividly remember how cool it was to make something that sounded like music and that sounded sort of good, right? I was very, very proud of myself and I was having a lot of fun. Now, I already said this in the intro basically, but if you imagine telling that 10-year-old boy who was making music in his parents' attic that he should give up on music because he cannot even play one chord on a keyboard, it's just wrong. It's just plain wrong. And maybe you can make the argument that that's a 10-year-old child. So what about a 15-year-old or a 20-year-old, a 25-year-old, or a grown-ass man like myself? But if I think about that, when can you tell someone purely based on their skill level at a certain point in time that they should give up on music? The answer is never. It's none of my business, right? I don't know where they came from. I don't know where they're going. I don't know what their expectations are, their ambitions are. So I should just shut the fuck up and leave them be. So why is the urge to say this shit to someone when talking about that Waves plugin so strong. I think I found a pretty unlikely clue in the form of this device that some of you might recognize from the home shopping network. It's basically a thing where you place some electrodes on your belly and then you go sit on the couch, you eat bonbons for a couple of weeks, and after that, bam, rock hard abs, right? That's what this device promises. And at first glance, you might see some of those overlaps with the Waves key finding plugin, right? Now, some of you might say I don't look the part, but I have been diligently working out for years now. 3 times a week, never skipping a workout, pumping iron in the gym, working on my physique. And if you would imagine that someone is using this app trainer thing and it actually works, and I see that person after just a couple of weeks of eating bonbons, all of a sudden in front of me having this beautiful 6-pack, that I would get just as angry with them as I would get with someone using that Waves key detection plugin, right? But if I imagine that scenario, I honestly could not care less. I don't give a shit about anybody cutting corners in that department. And I realized that that is because I go to the gym for myself and myself alone. I go there 3 times a week because it makes me feel good. I celebrate the progress that I make with myself, basically. And this whole act of going to the gym and working out and getting stronger is a gift that I give to myself. And that's it. If I compare that to my music making practice, there's a pretty stark contrast, because as much as I would like to say that making music is a gift I give to myself, it's actually something that I want to get something out of. You know, money, fame, maybe recognition from my peers, and just realizing that that's a desire that I have does not make the desire go away all of a sudden, which is also the reason why I'm telling you that you can buy my courses on questforgroove.com about finger drumming and making things groove or groove more in your home studio. That's something that I sell, and it's not something I'm going to stop selling all of a sudden just because I want to become more zen or something, right? So I'm sort of invested in this, I'm stuck in this, and I realized as soon as a part of your livelihood is on the line, as soon as your ego starts to play a role because you want recognition or fame or respect from your peers, as soon as those things come in, your livelihood and your ego, that's also where fear comes in. The fear that one day the difference between me and anybody else on the planet will basically be nothing. That my ability to identify the key of a song has become obsolete. That basically any musical skill that you can work on to acquire has become obsolete because it can be outsourced to a computer program with better results. And that everybody's a musician and nobody's a musician at the same time. And that really feeds into my fear and feeds that urge to attack this fictional future person that I completely made up in my head that uses all of these tools, right? I imagine that person to be lazy, unmotivated, uncreative, laying on the couch, eating bonbons, and then one day they just let out this weird fart that gets picked up by their smartphone, which then gets sent to ChatGPT, which then sort of generates this AI pop song that's just amazing and goes around the world and propels this lazy, farty person into pop history as the greatest artist that ever lived. That's my fear, and it's a ridiculous fear if I say it out loud, but that's what creates that aggression inside of me. And just saying that out loud already resolves a lot of stuff, but I can do you one better, because this is not my first rodeo, actually. Throughout the years, I've had similar feelings about quantize, auto-tune, of course, using real instruments versus fake instruments, mixing in the box versus analog gear. I've even had it about pop music in general. When I was still heavily invested in jazz, I actually had a phase where I considered making pop music as the easy way to reach the masses. So Yeah, I've gone pretty deep, guys, and my surefire solution to getting rid of those feelings and getting rid of those frustrations has always been just allowing myself or challenging myself to just use those tools for a while, right? Quantize everything, auto tune everything, mix completely in the box, use only software instruments, write a pop song with only one chord. And as soon as you allow yourself to do that, you remember, right? Making something that's even remotely worth listening to is an act of hard work, love, and dedication, hours in the studio. And as soon as you do it, you realize all those tools are not the end result. They're tools. And that act remains the same. And I understand that in this case, with this key detection tool, we're never going to use it because we probably already know the key of the song that we're working on while we're working on it. But that doesn't really matter, because if you think about this person that does need that tool right now, right? That person needs this tool, uses it, spends time in the studio, all those hours, all that love, all that dedication as a beginner. And somehow at the end of the road, they made a song that's worth listening to. That's remarkable. That's amazing. And that deserves our praise and respect, right? We, as that person's musical peers, should be applauding that person. Here's another video that I recorded about me getting a part-time office job and dangers of moderate success. You might enjoy it. Hope to see you around. Bye-bye.